Welcome to another wonderful day in Dolphins land. I am Omar Kelly, Miami Herald's Dolphins columnist, and you are watching Dolphins in Depth. Right now, I want to bring in Barry Jackson from Cell Block 64. Barry is coming to us live from practice. And Barry, today was an important day because we got offensive coaches. We'll actually have defensive coaches, a little bit of a tease for you tomorrow. But we get to ask all those probing questions about what players are doing and what they need to do and timelines on positions. Now, none of these questions are answered to my satisfaction ever. However, it gives us a little bit more insight. Barry has a 72-piece nuggets up on the Miami Herald website. Barry, what are you addressing your 72-piece nuggets?
Well, the assistant coaches spoke today. We had generally positive talk from all of them. Everybody's doing a great job, so you have to read between the lines with what they say. And let me tell you a couple takeaways from the first assistant coach media availability of training camp. It's clear the Dolphins coaches love what Robert Jones is doing. So at this point, with Isaiah Wynn still sidelined, it's interesting that Butch Barry and Frank Smith both use the word great with Rob Jones. Liam Eichenberg and Jack Driscoll also got compliments from Butch Barry, but not quite as effusive as Rob Jones got. So I thought that was interesting. Another thing the coaches talked about today is what a worker and how diligent Jalen Wright is. We see the speed. We've seen him turn the corner multiple times throughout this offseason and in training camp. But Frank Smith was raving about how he's in the building all of the time. Didn't even go back to Knoxville during the summer. According to Frank Smith, was there throughout the offseason program and obviously into the summer, and how dedicated he is to learning the task at hand so that he can get playing time this season. So from the coach availability, that stood out. And one other thing, Omar, that was interesting. I think he's probably going to get playing time in a combination with Jeff Wilson as your third back. I think he and Wilson clearly are competing for the third role. I think depending on the opponent, the game situation, the matchup, I think we're going to see playing time. Here's the one other thing that stood out to me that I mentioned to you at camp today. In the past, when asked about Eric Ezukama, Wes Welker would always say, we just got to have him lined up in the right position. The skills are there. We like the body. We like the skill set. Today, Welker sounded like a guy, I don't want to say who's moved past him because that would be unfair, but the answer was very brief to three questions about Ezukama today. I asked him, has the light turned on because he hasn't done a lot in injury? And Welker's response was very brief and said, well, we'll see when he gets back out here what he's done. So have they begun to acknowledge privately that it's simply not going to work out with this guy? I hope that's not the case. I hope he still has a good career because he has talent, but the signs are kind of discouraging, no?
You know what's interesting about Eric Ezukama? There's a certain point where coaches kind of stop investing in players. He's injured right now. He hasn't practiced for the last couple of days. Obviously, the Miami Dolphins are adding wide receivers. Willie Snead today, recent addition. I don't know how old he is, but he looks old. No offense. But in terms of, there's a couple of themes that I have noticed about the receivers and the quarterbacks. The backup quarterbacks are struggling. Even though they do get opportunities to play with Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, they're struggling. Now, can that struggle be associated to A, how the defensive units are playing, B, the fact that they're working with various guys at various times and don't get the same amount of reps that Tua has? Not just that, but they don't have the same talent level that Tua has. And then C, could receivers be running the wrong routes? Could receivers not be running routes at the right route depths? Could receivers not be making the right hot reads? Could receivers not just be delivering for them? So that's an issue that's going on, that's plagued the receiving unit. But I will say this. After Tuesday's practice, where Jalen Ramsey basically gave the team a 10-minute speech about being bullies and stop being, as I call it, the BA team of the NFL, the receivers and the offensive players, they took that personal. And that was because it was the defense that were pushing them around. And while all of the fights and all of the talk about being tougher and mentally tougher is great, it's about, Tyreek got on the podium and basically was like, hey, that's all well and good, but we're the number one offense. We're the offense that everybody backs down from because we're the scary offense. We carry this team, and we need to start acting like it. And I believe somebody asked the question. I can't remember who asked the question, but he was on the field, and he said Mike McDaniel challenged the receivers to talk smack today just so that they can have the mentality and the aggressive mentality that, hey, their head coach has. And he does have an aggressive mentality. Now, it delivered a better offensive performance today, and I would actually say that the offense won the day, in my opinion, even though the defense was inserting blitz packages, and Anthony Weaver's blitz packages led to false starts and misplaced assignments and sacks. That's all well and good. But to do a blitz package on a day that's really red zone and goal line and third down and no pads kind of stacks the deck a little bit in the favor of the defense, in my opinion. And the offense actually produced. They had some very good plays.
Because of Tua, because of Jalen Waddle, and because of Tyreek Hill. So Tua threw to Tyreek today as much as you would see in a regular season game. He targeted him at least 10 times. They got completions on, I would say, about 70% of them. Sizable gain on one of them. Beautiful 40-yard throw downfield that ultimately was negated by a sack, a would-be sack. And with Waddle, he continued a very good camp today. Extremely impressive, leaping in the end zone and red zone drills for a touchdown. And then the way practice ended was really interesting, with Tua targeting Jalen Ramsey on 3 consecutive throws, 2 to River Craycraft, who is certainly reliable with his hands. The first one, Ramsey deflected. Second one, Craycraft caught on a crossing pattern. And then the deep ball from Tua to Jalen Waddle for 43 yards for a touchdown, and Tua's last 11-on-11 work. That was impressive. Frank Smith today said Waddle's doing a better job finishing his routes. He seems like an even better player this year. I know it's camp. I know he's going against, guys maybe not totally full speed.
You might as well say it. He's going against Ethan Bonner, but there's no shame in going against Ethan Bonner, who
struggled today.
Has struggled today. He will be in my stock down. Ethan Bonner got exposed today. Now, it happens. The question is, the true value is how will you respond to it? The one thing I will say is the wide receiver unit, I have been disappointed in what I've seen so far, with the exception of Tyreek. And I think you saying that Tyreek, is targeted so much. Yeah, Tyreek cherry picks when he's in practice. He takes 20 snaps. And when he's on the field, he'll probably gonna be targeted. But Tyreek took offense to the Kansas City Chiefs and media members associated with that team talking about the Chiefs being the fastest team in the NFL.
Yeah, that was.
You can't say that until you really put on the pads and get on the field. Obviously, people have seen what we do down here in Miami, which is fast, explosive, whatever you want to call it. So everybody's entitled to their own opinion. So Kansas City, they got a great group of young guys who can fly, but I'm still gonna stand 10 toes down for the guys that we got here, man.
Tyreek, it seems like Waddle's having a pretty good camp so far. How have you seen him come back in the summer and get even better this year?
Man, you know what? Obviously, when you got the mindset and you take the right approach on, wanting to lean on some of the veteran guys that you got in the room, and he's done a tremendous job with that. Leaning on myself, leaning on Coach Walker. He's done a great job of being real coachable, in that aspect of it. And for me, that's what I told him. I said, when I came into the league, it's a lot of guys who are real talented, but the guys that are successful in this league are the ones that are real coachable. You know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, we all trying to get better. Ain't none of us perfect. I mean, I can go for 2,000 yards. There's still ways that I can get better. And for him, he's come in with a different approach on what routes I need to get better at. How can I be, more talkative with the quarterback and what spots I need to be in and stuff like that. And so far, it's paid off for him, man. He came out here each and every day busting his tail, and we still competing his team versus my team in one-on-ones, and you can see at the end of the count, man, the results paid off. He's busting his tail. He scored a big one at the end.
Yeah, he's referring to, I believe it was called that. What was the yardage we gave it, Barry, on Jalen on Jalen crime?
Yeah, 43 was that touchdown late in practice. So did you think Tyreek was going to come out more strongly in the favor of the Dolphins' speed? I think he handled that diplomatically. I think he's sensitive to saying anything to insult Kansas City at all. Ever since he made that comment about Tua having the best accuracy in the league, I think he's sensitive to not wanting to insult anyone or anything about the Chiefs. So I think that's why he was very measured in his comments today, which I think were delivered by Tom Pelissero, saying that Kansas City might have the best speed in the league. I thought he handled that delicately today.
You know what? I think Tyreek is handling everything delicately because
Yes.
he's trying to get the money, Barry.
Yes, he's on his best behavior. And he's always handled himself like a pro here. I want to be clear with that. He's been very professional with us. I think he's handled the contract negotiations admirably, making clear he's not going to ask to be traded, making clear he's not going to sit out practice, making clear that winning is a priority to him above all else, and making clear that he's not going to make a stink. So to me, he's handled it like a total pro. We'll see where it leads. Tell me why you think this is going to wait until next offseason. I know just a hunch you have that they're not going to do a deal with him now. Why?
It makes too sense to do it now from my standpoint. But then again, a lot of times the Dolphins don't do things that make sense. You've got, I believe it's $22 million in cap space right now. Extending Tyreek will give you about additional $14 million in cap space, even if you pay him at a $30 million a year rate. If you wait, CeeDee Lamb's about to get a deal. He'll probably become the highest paid receiver, jumping over Justin Jefferson. This is the norm of the NFL. That's why, people will say to you, well, who's the Green Bay Packers quarterback? Jordan Love is the highest paid quarterback in the league, allegedly, whatever. If you wait, CeeDee Lamb's going to get a deal. Jamar Chase is going to get a deal. And then whoever's next, they got to jump over him. Why would you not want to be ahead of those deals? Because you're going to have to pay Tyreek. He's going to have to be a top 3, if not top 4 or 5 paid wide receiver. That going rate's about $30 million a year. Why would you wait when you know this is the last year of money that's guaranteed? Then next year he's okay. He's on the roster for a respectable, I believe it's $20 million. I'm sure you'll look it up, Barry. And then he's got that fake 2026 season for $45 million. Why don't you just restructure the contract? Guarantee the man $60 million, add 2 more years to the deal, whether fake or real, give yourself some wiggle room, and then also give yourself the opportunity to restructure the deal, make it more cap friendly in the coming years. Always borrow from Tyreek's deal. Here's the thing. Tyreek's about to be a top 10 player in the NFL again, voted on by his peers. And I would argue to anybody, I would wager my life on this. I'm pretty sure you can't name me 10 players in the NFL at any position that are better than Tyreek Hill at his job.
Right, not in terms of how to switch a game and momentum. Absolutely. And to me, it's interesting that Tyreek is not openly angry about the fact that he's going to earn $19 million this year while Justin Jefferson's at $30 million. If Tyreek is privately fuming about this, it's certainly not obvious to reporters because, again, he's handled himself like a pro. But to me, you have to do the deal now because he deserves it. He's your most impactful player. If you win big this year, he's going to be as much of a reason as any. And also, here's the other question. We know that Jamar Chase is probably not going to reset the market because he's playing for a team that's traditionally cheap in Cincinnati, which refuses even to raise the salary for $1 million this year. But the interesting one to me, Omar, is CeeDee Lamb. Dallas, again, is behaving cheaply, a different way than how you would perceive Jerry Jones. He hasn't paid Prescott the big money, hasn't paid CeeDee Lamb, hasn't paid Micah Parsons. At some point, CeeDee Lamb is going to get paid. And if CeeDee Lamb gets a new deal that averages about $33 million a year, then you're just going to see Tyreek's price go up even more. And of course, he's taken the trade off the table, which gives the Dolphins a little bit of leverage. But to me, Tyreek should be at higher than $19 million when Justin Jefferson's at $30. I would agree with you. Get it done now. There's really no reason to wait.
Yeah, definitely. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But I'm more focused on not necessarily because you could do the deal next year and it would create the same or identical amount of cap space and you could price it based on how he performs in the season. But we know Tyreek is going to be a ridiculous unless there's an injury involved. Do you expect any drop off from Tyreek even though he's 30?
No way. There's been no sign of it.
No,
yeah, I mean, he's going to be great. I think we can be as confident that he's going to be great as any player in South Florida sports this year because the body of work speaks for itself.
Yeah, definitely.
But I want to add this on the team. Totally with you in terms of concern about the young guys. We haven't seen enough from Malik Washington. Very uneven. Perhaps we had too high expectations as a fifth rounder. We talked about Ezukama. Where's the young pipeline of good receivers? I don't see it right now. Now, you still have confidence that once Beckham's healthy, Tyreek, Waddle, Beckham, as good a top three as any in the league. To me, Berrios is a serviceable number 4. Craycraft is reliable, maximizes the skills. So I think if it's just those 5, they're going to be fine. The problem is if you lose one of your starters or Odell, then I think there are problems because no one has emerged as the next guy to play on the boundary if you lose Hill or Waddle or Beckham for that matter. And I think that's where you have to be a little concerned about the developmental pipeline at receiver. Obviously, they lost Taj Washington, but he was a 7th rounder anyway, so they couldn't have counted on him. What else concerns you offensively? I've been a little disappointed. Jody Fortson at tight end. Jonnu Smith has dropped some balls. What else skill position-wise has you a little, as Joe Philbin would say, queasy?
You love my Joe Philbin's queasy. Come on, Barry. You said skill-wise. Okay, I was going to go my offensive line, which is always going to make me queasy. Even though I trust Butch Barry, I'm a little queasy. I like what I've seen from the running backs. Raheem worked a little bit today. Got taken off the ice. He's not Bubble Boy. He practices every day, but how many carries or touches or and they're keeping the tread on his tires. They're not. And he ran great on the outside. I have confidence in running back. Tight ends we learned from John Embry. One works every other day. Jonnu Smith works. Durham Smythe doesn't. Durham Smythe works. Jonnu doesn't. And I found that John Embry very funny and entertaining when he called the maintenance program in the NFL now. He's like, yeah, can we even call this camp? He said, this is more like, he said, basically, this is preschool, which is basically they're babysitting people. And hey, I don't object to this approach, especially when you consider how the season has ended for the Dolphins the last 2 years. But there's one thing that I did want to mention. Leger Duzable, who I did shows with on I Am Athlete, phenomenal host, works for CBS and Sirius. They did a live show for Sirius, him and Dan Campbell, out at the Dolphins facility. And he basically educated me, and so did Dan, who played for Mike Shanahan in Denver. He was like, from the Shanahan tree, they have a program where basically aged, mature players, they do not work the same training camp. They do not work the same practice schedule as the rest of the team. And they said the rule is 10 years and plus, you do not work the same schedule. They are basically keeping you on ice. They're making you work once a week if you're 10 years plus, and then the rest of the time you get yourself ready for the season. And that would make a lot of sense. I didn't know it comes from the tree in terms of what Mike McDaniel is doing, because this approach has been sort of an altered approach from what we've seen the last 2 years. But I didn't know it comes from the tree. So when you're seeing Calais Campbell work every other day, or Jordan Poyer work every other day, or who else is in the maintenance program? Raheem Mostert.
Well, Tyreek goes in and out. He'll sit out for 50 minutes. He'll then play. You mentioned the tight ends doing that. I think it's smart because the one unanswered question that I don't know that we're ever going to fully get a clear answer on this is how much is the December swoons a byproduct of practicing in this heat every day in late July and August, which just takes so much out of you? How much is it opponents in December? How much is it exhaustion from being in the South Florida heat? How much is it a tough schedule? How much is it bad luck? If they have a swoon again in December, they're probably going to blame the schedule because the schedule is extremely difficult late with Houston and San Francisco and going to Cleveland and then going to the Jets. But I can understand why they're doing this with guys. To me, it makes sense from at least a physiological standpoint.
Absolutely. It does make sense. I don't object to it. Teron Armstead's out there practicing, but basically we just watched him do wind sprints today. Listen, take your time, ramp it up. And I will say, and I said, this is one of the oldest teams in the NFL right now, just because of how they built this roster. Figure out what you got to do to play better in December and January. And if this is it, so be it. The one area that everybody in the world knows I'm obsessed with is the trenches. And by default, that leads to the offensive line and leads to our conversation. And Barry, today you were part of some peppering questions to Butch Barry, who I think he handled himself quite well. I have a mantra. Anytime I start to get worried about this offensive line, I say, in Butch Barry, I trust. Based on what he did last season, I could see today Kendall Lamb struggled. Everybody knows I'm a huge Kendall Lamb fan, and today Quentin Bell was getting in that booty, and it was not pretty. And Kendall Lamb was struggling at left tackle. I watched him at the end of the practice while everybody was going on, and he went to the midfield and then took a knee and was probably talking to himself, diagnosing what was wrong. Now, no disrespect to Quentin Bell, because I think Quentin Bell is my biggest surprise of camp so far, because for a practice squad player to be a starter and it not be just because, he's the only one left. No, he's balling. He's really practicing.
Good. In fact, if the season started tomorrow, well, it'd be very strange if the season started tomorrow. But if it did, Quentin Bell would be one of your starting edge players. With Ogba, probably wouldn't be Chop Robinson. I don't think wouldn't be Kamara, even though both have flashed. So you're right. Bell deserves some credit. Lamb's play today, as you said, disappointing. I wouldn't be too surprised. Here's what stood out to me. I was going to tell you about Butch Barry. A couple things today. One was on Patrick Paul. He praised his work. He praised his skill set. But he said that whether this is a successful training camp, in his view, for Patrick Paul, has nothing to do with his performance. He said it's all about how he picks up their technique in the run game and pass protection and the fundamentals that they teach. So I found it interesting for coach to say that a performance and how a player does not determine whether a camp was successful. I thought that was interesting. And then I was going to mention Isaiah Wynn to you, Omar. So you and I both tried our best to get a timetable, a prognosis about Isaiah Wynn. But as you said in the interview with Butch Barry, this team is allergic to the word timetable. It's a word that simply cannot be uttered around here. So as far as one thing we were able to extract from Butch Barry, he said they're still working on when he'll come back, but he made clear that he's not going to immediately go back in the starting lineup like a Teron Armstead would once he's able to practice and play again. Butch Barry made clear, I've got to see this guy at left guard before we reinsert him as a starter, even though he was great at pass protection the first 7 weeks of last season, pretty good as a run blocker, but he's not going to automatically be handed the job without proving in practice that the rust is off. Do you agree with that?
I definitely think that this calf injury was way more than we thought it was last season when people were talking about him potentially coming back. And I talked to my guys in the NFL, and they said a calf, especially when you're 300 pounds and that calf is supposed to carry that weight, it's a huge challenge to come back. And here is Butch Barry on Isaiah Wynn, and basically, what is the timetable? Well, he wouldn't answer the timetable question, but how much do you need to see him? Is this like a Teron Armstead situation where Teron, you trust him?
Right. Okay, how much work do you need?
Well, yeah, you naturally need to get multiple individual periods, and you need to get multiple team periods. Each guy is different. Each guy is on a different timetable again with that, but they need to be able to get individual, start getting into the routine of what it is to be an offensive lineman, and then the team reps of going against real defenders versus bag holders.
I'm sorry, Isaiah's still battling that same quad from last year?
Yeah, everything's injuries, but we're working through a timetable on that. I don't know exactly what it's going to be.
I have one more word salad question regarding Isaiah Wynn without using the word timetable. With Teron, if you don't see him practice, you obviously have the trust he can go in and play. With Isaiah Wynn, assuming he gets a couple practices in before September 8th, do you have the trust in him from what he showed weeks 1 to week 7 last year that you would be comfortable plugging him in as your starting left guard?
Based upon those practices, I have to evaluate at that point. I'm trying to forecast what those practices will be, which I can't do.
Butch, what quantifies a successful training camp for Patrick?
It's a very interesting question. It's a good question. That would be something where we, number one, understanding fundamentally how we want to approach a pass block. Okay? Everything that entails with your set and initiation of contact. Second, run game. How do I initiate that? What's my approach? How do I attack defenders? What's my leverage on every play relative to the concept, right? So that has to begin there. If I understand that means, and then I'm understanding what we're doing as an offense, now I think that's a great training camp, right? Is it based upon production, results? No. at some point, we all know that matters, but not for the training camp at this point.
Yeah. So here's the thing. We've got tomorrow, which is going to be a situation in front of fans, season ticket holders. Then we've got Saturday's practice. It is not going to be a scrimmage. I get slapped on the wrist by Ann Nolan every time I call it a scrimmage. They don't want to present it as a scrimmage to fans when they're going to come out and see a practice. And then after that, we've got the joint practice with the Atlanta Falcons. And that gives you an opportunity to sort of, that's where the starters are not going to play in the game. They're going to play in the scrimmage. So if you get 10 fans, that's the one to attend. And it's free. So that's when we're going to get our real first test and first look of whether or not this offensive line passes the sniff test. You're going to see Kendall Lamb out there, left tackle. You're clearly not going to see Teron Armstead at all in the exhibition season. Maybe he touches some joint practices. I don't know. Maybe one series every week. Who knows? But right now, and to sort of tap dance around your question, Barry, it looks like Rob Jones is going to be your season opening starter at the left guard spot. And Isaiah Wynn is going to be working his way into training camp shape. Now, yes, and we're going to keep Teron Armstead healthy at left tackle. Now, with all of that said, does a line of Teron Armstead, Rob Jones, Aaron Brewer, I can't remember how to say his first name properly, then Liam Eichenberg, Jack Driscoll, which is a battle that's still ongoing and I think will be determined based on what we see in joint practices and the exhibition season, and then Austin Jackson. Does that line excite you, concern you?
As the great Jim Mandich would say, may you rest in peace, does not make my toes tingle. It's a line that's okay. It's not great. You're relying on Aaron Brewer to be much better in pass protection. He allowed 6 sacks for Tennessee last season, worst 2 among centers. I asked Butch Barry today in a clip we didn't see, did you identify anything technically with him on the Tennessee tape that you think you can correct to make him a better pass protector? Obviously, he's undersized at 295 pounds. Butch Barry said, yes, we identified things in the run game where he's very good, and the passing game, the pass protection game, where we think he can get better. So that concerns me. Obviously, going into the season with 2 okay guys as your starting guards and not a dominant guy like Robert Hunt, that concerns me. The Armstead health issue will be a concern throughout his career. So to me, I am a little bit queasy, our favorite word, about this offensive line. I'm not thinking it's going to be a terrible line. I'm just not convinced it's going to be a very good line either.
Butch Barry, you don't trust? You don't trust Butch Barry?
I trust Butch Barry. I'm just not sure I trust the material. Look, you can't lose players the caliber of Connor Williams and Robert Hunt and replace them with players that probably aren't as good and assume your line's going to be as good as it was a year ago. Nor can you assume health for Armstead when we've never seen it throughout his entire career. He's never played the full 17-game season. So I'm a little uncomfortable with it. To me, they're going to have to prove to me that they can be an above average unit. Right now, I look at this group and I say, okay, this could be an average line. I don't think it's a terrible line. I just think it's an average line. Do you share this concern?
One, I trust Butch Barry. He made it work last year with 3 backups on the interior line and a center who was playing with with one leg, a backup center who was playing with one leg. To me, the key to this offensive line, and I hate to say this because it feels like I'm picking on him every single training camp, is Liam Eichenberg. Now, I will say this in Liam's defense. This coaching staff, they trust and believe in Liam Eichenberg. Now, does the players on the team trust and believe in Liam Eichenberg? Now, Liam has prime opportunity right now, and I say the same thing, not just Liam, but Rob Jones. If you want it, take it. You keep what you kill. And think about Quentin Bell. Quentin Bell was given this much of a window, an opportunity, until Chop Robinson and Muhammad Kamara was ready and showed what they can do. You're going to hold this spot, but how long can you hold it against a edge rusher who might have the fastest get off in the NFL, a first-round pick, a guy that we're clearly going to play on third downs? Okay, but is he going to be a starter? Right now, Quentin Bell's saying, my precious, I'm not giving up that spot. And he's playing like that. Now, Liam, how many chances are you going to get, brother? After this season, no matter how it plans out, you will either be a career backup in the NFL, a backup center, or you'll be an NFL starter making $8 to $9 million a year based on how you play. Now, that's on you. That's not on the coaching staff. That's not on Mike McDaniel. That's on Chris Greer. That's on you. The same thing with Rob Jones. You signed back. They didn't give you a restricted tender. You signed back. You got a decent amount of money, but this is your window. This is your chance. You got to seize it. And I don't know if who has seized the opportunity out on this team that they've been handed outside of Quentin Bell. I don't see anybody.
Yeah, Jones to an extent. Liam, we all root for him. He's a hell of a nice guy. I think he was competent enough at right guard last year compared to his play at center, which was uneven. That I'm not convinced he's not going to do the job. I know that's like the too old comment of, well, I'm not sure that I'm not wanted, right? So I think Liam might be able to do the job. We're just not sure yet, right? So we're going to have to give it into September to see if he beats out Jack Driscoll.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm not centering it on Rob Jones or Jack Driscoll, or Liam Eichenberg. It could be Jack Driscoll. I don't care. It could be an undrafted guy. I don't care who takes the job. Somebody just has to raise their hand and say, I want it. And that's not happening from what I'm seeing. Now, it'll be a little bit more interesting to see what happens when they start going against other teams and other opponents. But right now, I just don't see it. But I will say this. I trust the guy who's going to be making that final decision, and I trust him to make it look okay. So that's where we are in terms of the offensive line and what's going on in the latest in Dolphins land. Barry, let's leave on this note. Tell me one thing from the next 2 days of practice before they go into their break, heading into their work week with the Atlanta Falcons. What's the one thing that you want to see the Miami Dolphins achieve in training camp the next 2 days?
I want to see a third corner step up and play consistently. We thought it was going to be Ethan Bonner, who had a good first week of camp. He was victimized on Thursday, did not have a good day. Who's been up and down. He made a really good play in coverage today, but was also beaten on a play deep. So to me, there's no clear-cut third best corner on the roster. Cam Smith remains out. McDaniel said he'll be back at some point in August. At some point, either someone's going to have to step up and consistently play well in that role, or they're going to have to take a look outside at veteran options and hope for a better version of Eli Apple on the street, whether it's Xavier Howard, a story for another day, or somebody in August. Hopefully it won't get to that point where they have to be looking on the street for a veteran corner in August. Hopefully one of these young kids will seize it.
Here's what I need, Barry. I need better play from the quarterbacks, not QB1, not Uno. I think he's doing fine. I've seen a lot of bad quarterbacking play during my tenure covering the Dolphins. He's not the problem. Mike White, Skylar Thompson. Maybe we should open up the competition. Maybe we should say, hey, this number 2 job is up for grabs here. Skylar, because of the rules changes to the 53-man roster where you don't have to activate or elevate a quarterback. He can always be your number 3 quarterback. Skylar's spot on the 53-man roster is not guaranteed. I know Skylar can play better than this. Mike White has been a starter in the NFL. It's got to be better than this. And I don't want to sit here and blame the offensive line and sit here and blame the wide receivers and sit here and blame the pass protection and sit here and blame the coaching staff and the lack of chemistry. During the duration of my career covering Dolphins, I have heard the laundry list of excuses for mediocre quarterback play. And trust me, what we're watching right now is mediocre quarterback play. They got to turn up the volume a little bit. And if not, there is absolutely no reason to watch the exhibition season because nobody important is going to be playing, and it's going to be the Mike White and Skylar Thompson show, and nobody's going to want to see that. So that's where I am with quarterback play. I don't want the excuses. Get them with a unit where they can develop some chemistry. Say, that's your unit. No matter where you go, these are your guys, and make it work.
I'm with you, and I'd like to see Skylar get a chance for the number 2 job. I'm not sure how much of a chance he has right now. To me, he's outperformed Mike White so far.
I would agree with that. I don't know it's fair to say that about Mike White, considering it's a little mess. It's a mess out there. But on that note, we will be back tomorrow with Dolphins in Depth, a Miami Herald podcast. Barry, mañana. See you mañana.